start with Primrose. Yes, that was your, I love hearing about how, being a teacher and being learning and understanding therapists, but then knowing you want to take it to the next level. So share with us how that happened.
I love my story about Primrose, and I don't tell it to everybody, but when I tell it, people are just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I was always in teaching and private practice. Always did that. And then went back to school and got my doctorate in health psychology, 2000s. And I quit teaching at one point, and I had interns that were working for me. And I love doing that because I'm still teaching and stuff. And I went to a workshop on basically how can therapists kind of do more with their practice. And this gentleman got up and he talked about a group practice. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool idea. And then I realized that I kind of have a group practice because I had like 2 interns working for me at this time and I was training them. And so his thing went on and I was very inspired. And on the plane ride home, I said, okay, I'm going to do a group practice. Idealistic as I was. And so I talked to my husband about it and he's like, sounds great. And I go, okay, well, what's the focus of the practice going to be? And at the time, I was working with people mostly with eating disorders and a variety of different things. And the model that I was using was a very holistic model, and it was working well with this population. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Why is this model working only with eating disorders clients? It should be working with everybody else. And so I decided to say, okay, we're going to do this holistic model with all clients. So I said, okay, so now I've got my thing. I'm going to do my group practice. It's going to be a holistic psychotherapy practice. And okay, now I need to name it. And I already had 2 people working for me, so it was good. So I literally was out for a walk at 6:30 in the morning. I swear to you, I'm not lying. And I went to get a cup of coffee and I said, okay, what would this practice be? And I said, well, healing and wellness. Okay, that made sense. Healing and wellness. And then I thought, well, Primrose Healing and Wellness. Well, that would be great because Primrose is a street that we're on. So Primrose Healing and Wellness. And I said, yeah, but what if I leave Primrose the street? And then it came to me, it's like Primrose is more than just a street. There's a primrose flower. There's a primrose healing oil. There's so many things that are connected with Primrose that are about healing. And I'm like, wait a second, it doesn't matter. Primrose Healing and Wellness is the name. And thus it came to be.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a great, because yes, we're familiar with Primrose Ave and that's where you're located. But I mean, putting those pieces together, it's really, I don't know, it's a lovely story and it makes so much sense for you because you really, you really don't have a cookie cutter type of therapy. You're not just saying, okay, this is the prescription for people. How do your clients, in the day to day, how, having that toolbox of, if you will, of different ways you can support them. What's an example or what's a story of somebody who you've been able to kind of pull different things and, how you help them?
So when I put together the whole holistic model, it was obviously I'm the psychotherapist, right? But my background is also in health psychology. So that means I've got a nutrition background. I've got a lot of different things. But what needed to come into our practice wasn't just psychotherapy. It was the things that were called adjuncts to therapy. Let's take example, anxiety. Somebody comes in with anxiety. Anxiety isn't just about a therapist who's telling you how to relax and that kind of thing, but there's a physical component to that. There's an emotional, social, there's all these different components. So what I brought into the practice were people who could support that. So there was a nutritional component. I brought in a nutritionist who could really help people at all different levels change the way or look at the way that nutrition was affecting who they were, what was going on with them. Clearly the psychological part. How do you teach people relaxation and really getting into their body? We brought in yoga therapy for a while. We had, so Reiki and polarity therapy are what are called energy therapies. And the idea behind those were that the body holds on to trauma, anxiety, whatever it is. And when a lot of times when people go into therapy, they think, oh, if they can just talk it through, it's going to go away. But the body holds on to that. So we needed to find a way to help the body release those energy blocks. The energy work kind of does that. So by bringing in all of these different therapies, people had an option to do what worked well for them. It could be one thing, it could be several things. It could be a 30-day treatment program where they could bring everything together. But it's really bringing everybody into knowing that the holistic model is what will be different than anything that they've ever done before.
Yeah. And then, so, you work with individuals, couples, families who want alternatives maybe to like the standard traditional psychotherapy.